Then there we go. Turn this up. All right. Forge! Gang! I'm still a hard man! Let's go! It is I, ImperatorOfForge, otherwise known as Forge Warhammer, which is my channel hashtag. I am the leader of Forge Gang. And the title of this stream will be ImperatorOfForge reviews a final solitary battle, the father of Z-Warrior Kakkarot Bardock, who challenged Frieza. It could also be titled, as per the manga title, The Departure of the Fated Child. Now, this Dragon Ball Z television special was released on October 17th, 1990. Yeah. Bardock, the Bardock special was released on July 17th, 1990. And the chapter, Dragon Ball Minus, The Departure of the Fated Child, was released on April 2013. No, April 2014. And it was an extra chapter in Akira Toriyama's mangaka Jocko the Galactic Patrolman, which ran in Shonen Jump from 2013 to 2014. And I am not for sure when the Kankoban of Jocko was released. But there is an extra chapter about Bardock and Gine. So, we finally have come to this. This is really, I should point out that none of this is in the original Dragon Ball manga. There is just one panel of Bardock, and I'll get to that in a second. About the time in the Dragon Ball manga when Frieza transforms the first time, the chapter that has Frieza transforming for the first time and fighting Krillin and Gohan and Vegeta, right after Piccolo comes back and fuses with Nail, and the Dragon Ball Z, in the episode where Vegeta isekais Guldo or Gurido and is about to fight with Recoome, this is when this television special was released. So, Dragon Ball Z, a final solitary battle or fight, the father of Z-Warrior Kakkarot Bardock, who challenged Frieza, came out in October of 1990. I want to go over a little bit and try to rate this television special. This television special was very unique. Akira Toriyama did not make any kind of manuscript. He did not write a storyboard, but he did design the characters, and he did give some suggestions, and he designed and helped. But the entire script of the Bardock special was completely done by Toei Animation, and it was completely unique. And at the time it came out, there was nothing at all about Bardock besides maybe Raditz mentioning that Goku had a father in the Saiyan arc. Regardless, the television special begins on planet Vegeta. To my knowledge, this is the first time in Dragon Ball Z that Planet Vegeta is shown, and a child is born, and there is a child that cries. A child with a very familiar hairstyle is born, and the doctors or the medics decide that he will be named Kakkarot. Kakkarot being a pun on carrot. All scions are named after vegetables, and so the child is named Kakkarot, but he is a low-class warrior and a virtual nobody, and it is immediately decided that he will be shipped off to a low-class inferior planet in which the populace or the inhabitants will be very easy to wipe out and exterminate, as is the case with all scion babies. Regardless, on planet Kanasa, a team of low-class scions are busy clearing out the planet for it to be added into Frieza's empire. And so there is a full moon on planet Kanasa. Bardock and his crew, Bargos, Fasha, Terra, and some other guys, transform into great apes or Ozarus using the blitz waves from Kanasa's moon, and the Kanasans fight back as best as they are able to, firing Kai Blast and whatever else, but the Ozarus are just too strong for them, and their entire race, or their entire species, is wiped out. Afterwards, the next day, the full moon phase is done. Bardock and his teammates revert to their normal selves. They're no longer great ape Ozarus, and they're burning a fire, and they're talking about stuff. They talk about how planet Kanasa has a species with unusual abilities that allows them to read minds and predict the future. And the last living Kanasan comes out. He survived the fallout, and he gets into a fight with Bardock. Naturally, Bardock very easily overpowers the Kanasan and destroys him and obliterates him with a Kai Blast. But the Kanasan puts a curse on Bardock. He curses Bardock to be absolutely helpless as he sees into the future and is given visions of the future. This is the curse that the Kanasans place upon the scions, because they are evil, and they do evil things across the universe, and they perform acts of visceral evil on behalf of Frieza. Regardless, the scions laugh it off. They succeed in their mission of wiping out the Kanasans and selling the planet on the Planet Trade Federation, or on the Planet Trade business, which is part of the Frieza Empire. So Bardock and his teammates return to planet Vegeta, and Bardock is really not interested in seeing his newborn son, Kakkarot, but regardless, he goes to the medical facility, and he sees his son, and he's impressed, and then he starts to see visions of planet Vegeta blowing up and being wiped out by Frieza, and he sees the future of his son, different visions of Goku's adventures and stuff, fighting Devil Emperor Piccolo and fighting against Vegeta and all sorts of things. Bardock simply ignores this and kind of dismisses it. He uses his scouter to scan Kakarot's power level and finds that Kakkarot has a power level of about 5 or 2. And so Bardock brushes off Kakkarot has a weak, inferior scion that is unqualified to live on planet Vegeta. So Kakkarot is rejected by his parents, and he is prepared to be shipped off to a planet to conquer. Regardless, on another planet, on one of Frieza's many planets of his empire, a very young and, like, I don't know, 7 or 8-year-old Prince Vegeta is fighting Sai-Bai men, and some of these Frieza soldiers are watching and they're quite impressed. Nappa, who is in his 30s, or Nappa, who is in his 30s, is watching, and they lose their bet to Nappa as Vegeta easily overcomes the Sai-Bai men and wipes them all out instantly. Vegeta, being an arrogant prick, or being a spoiled, arrogant prick, wants to have an assignment and go on a mission. He goes into Frieza's chamber. Zarbon and Dodoria are there in the chamber, and Vegeta, though he loyally serves his master Frieza, explains that he is the prince of all Scions and he wants to go on a mission. Frieza accepts and sends Vegeta and Nappa on an assignment. Regardless, Bardock goes into the healing chamber or into a healing vat machine and heals, and his friends or others, or his teammates, are ahead of him on planet Meat. So Bardock follows in a Scion space pod to planet Meat to go check up on his teammates in clearing out that planet. Regardless, Frieza is becoming very suspicious about the Scions. Even the lower-class warriors are getting stronger, and Frieza is increasingly concerned, as is Zarbon, with regards to a possible Scion rebellion. And so Frieza decides that he's going to get all of the Scions to go back to planet Vegeta, and he's going to blow it up. He's going to spare Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz, who is Kakarot's older brother, but he's going to exterminate all of the other Scions by blowing up planet Vegeta. Regardless, Bardock, who has undergone a Zenkai boost, makes it to planet Meat, and while all of the species of Meaticians have been wiped out, he finds that Bargos, Terra, Fasha, and all of his other teammates are dead. Only Terra is still alive, or Turpitz is still alive. Bardock talks to the dying Turpitz, and he points out that Frieza Force soldiers, they got into a fight or a spat with Frieza Force soldiers that killed all of his teammates. He tells Bardock that Frieza is scared and afraid of the potential of the Scions, and he knows that they will eventually surpass him in strength. They talk about a super warrior program or some kind of a super warrior, and that Frieza fears the potential of these new super elite Scions. This is not the same as a Super Saiyan, by the way. So anyways, Turpitz, or Tripitz, dies, and Bardock takes off his bandera, or bandana, and puts it on and closes his eyes and tells his teammates farewell. He takes his bandana, coats it in the blood of his teammates to where it's red, and puts it around his head, and vows to avenge his fallen teammates. And consequently, that is just when Dodoria's team arrive. Dodoria sent his soldiers to take care of the low-class Scions on planet Meat, and so a battle ensues. This is the only really pertinent fight in the entire Bardock special. So Bardock powers up, and he fights, and they fire Kai blasts, and he grip locks them and overpowers them, and fights the Frieza Force soldiers. They're very strong and very tough. Like, Bardock's power level is only 10,000. Bardock has a pretty high power level for a Scion, but his power level is like about 8,000 or 9,000. He's a little bit stronger than Nappa, but weaker than Prince Vegeta. He fights pretty roughly, and he gets beat up pretty bad, but he grip locks and punches right through and decapitates a Frieza Force soldier, and then some of the others try to fight him. While he is powering up and fighting, he has visions of his son Kakkarot using the Kaioken fighting against Prince Vegeta in the Saiyan arc. It is the curse of the Kanassans upon the fate of the Scions. And Bardock continues to see the fate of his people as they are wiped out. Has the Scions had done evil deeds in the universe, and has they had been used as slaves to wipe out other alien civilizations, so then will they face their own extermination at the hands of the very person that they had served so loyally. So anyways, Bardock overpowers and wipes out Dodoria's teammates and wins, and he buries his teammates, but then Dodoria, one of Frieza's highest henchmen, arrives and tells Bardock that Frieza is very impressed with the loyalty and the good-handed service that the Scions have given him, but now they have the potential to do something that Frieza fears greatly, and they have to be wiped out. Bardock fights as best as he can, but he is no match for Dodoria. Dodoria's power level is just too high, and Dodoria beats him down and fires mouth blasts that basically knocks him out. But Bardock is not dead. He survives. He continues to have visions as he goes back to planet Vegeta in his space pod. Regardless, the child Kakkarot is shipped off to planet Earth, has the space team put him into the Saiyan attack ball, and he gets blasted off to Earth. There's this interesting scene where the two attack balls that Bardock is in and the one that Kakkarot is in go by, and Bardock sees, and he knows, he feels in his heart that that is his son Kakkarot going to Earth. And he just watches as the attack pod goes off into space while he goes to planet Vegeta. So Bardock is in a hurry. He's in a big hurry to try to tell everyone, or to tell other people. He goes through the space station trying to tell them that Frieza is going to betray the Scions, but everybody laughs at him. Nobody believes him. So there's this scene where Bardock goes into a bar, and like the Scions are laughing at him. His friends and teammates think that he needs to drink beer or something and try to chill out, and they wonder why Bardock is so battle injured. So nobody believes Bardock. He tries to tell the Scions that they need to unite and fight Frieza. They don't believe him. So he goes to the top of some building, and he has a vision where he's on planet Namek, and he's talking to Goku, and Goku is telling Bardock that he needs to change. This, of course, is a vision or a premonition, and him and Goku have a small dialogue, and Bardock has a vision, and he realizes that his son, Kakkarot, is going to fight Frieza. So Bardock is able to sense Frieza's thoughts and emotions, and he flies up into space where Frieza's spaceship is at, and as Bardock heads to Frieza's spaceship, a bunch of Frieza Force soldiers come out and they fight, and Bardock gets into a pretty interesting fight and stuff where he kills a few Frieza Force soldiers, and then finally the pod doors on Frieza's spaceship open. Frieza comes out in his hover chair. Bardock says that the Scions have quit working for him, and that they will no longer be loyal slaves to the Frieza Empire. And Bardock powers up and fires a Kai Blast, telling Frieza to basically, to go off. Frieza just laughs and creates a giant death ball. All of Bardock's attacks are in vain. The death ball is launched and Bardock dies. Bardock continues to see the various visions of the future, and indeed, what the Kanasan had told him, or the Kanasan elder told him, comes to pass. Bardock smiles and dies, and the death ball hits planet Vegeta, and all of the Scions are wiped out, and planet Vegeta is destroyed. And Frieza just stares on and laughs mockingly at the arrogance of the Scions for even considering that they could ever stand up to the likes of him. So there's a scene where Prince Vegeta is on a planet and he is busy wiping out its inhabitants that are resisting the Frieza Empire, and Vegeta gets a message or a memento or like a interspace telegram on his scouter that informs him that planet Vegeta was wiped out by a meteor. A giant meteor crashed into Vegeta and it exploded, and Vegeta doesn't really care much about it. But anyways, he's on assignment, conquering a planet for the Frieza Empire. Bardock psychically contacts Kakkarot and tells him to survive and make it, and has Kakarot's space pod goes through space. What was Bardock's bandana flies out into the emptiness of space. This is the legacy of the Z Warrior Bardock. So, a few months later, or about a year later, Kakkarot does land on Earth, and an old elderly man named Grandfather Son Gohan finds Kakkarot. He has no idea where Kakkarot comes from. He notices that Kakkarot has a tail, and he just takes care of the baby. So Grandpa Gohan names the infant baby Goku. And somewhere in the distance, away from Grandpa Gohan's house, is the Saiyan attack pod that Goku came in, and that's the end of the Bardock special. So, how does ImperatorOfForge rate the Bardock special? A final solitary battle. The father of Z Warrior Kakkarot Bardock, who challenged Frieza. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's fairly good. It's very brief, but quite interesting. The fighting is really nothing of interest. Bardock is definitely a very tragic character. I personally rate Bardock as a character on a scale of about 7 to 10. I rate the Bardock special on a rating of about 6 out of 10. So I rated a 6 out of 10. Now, in Jocko the Galactic Patrolman, we have Dragon Ball Minus, and the chapter begins with Bardock and his teammate on assignment attacking aliens and conquering a planet. Eventually, they get a message on their scouters, or his friend gets a message on their scouters saying that they need to go back to planet Vegeta because Frieza is ordering all Scions to go back to Vegeta. In the spaceship, Bardock tells his teammate to take off their scouters because the Frieza Force can track any messages or listen into anything on their scouter. Bardock is the first and only Scion who actually mentions that Frieza wants to destroy planet Vegeta. When they arrive on planet Vegeta, Bardock is talking to some guys, and they are talking about how Frieza has been inquisitively interested in these ancient legends about the Super Saiyan. So this just confirms even more Bardock's suspicions. In the orbit of planet Vegeta on Frieza's ship, Frieza, who is in his hover chair, is having a conversation with Kikino, who is talking about the legends of Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan God. And he just explains to Frieza that these are just simply mythologies and complete babble and nonsense that the Saiyans talk about. But Frieza nevertheless does not want to take any chances. He asks Kikino how long it will be before all the Saiyans arrive on Vegeta. He says it will take about a month. And so during that time, on another planet, Prince Vegeta and Raditz and Nappa are on an assignment on that planet, wiping out its entire inhabitants as they conquer the planet for the Frieza Empire. Regardless, after their fight, Vegeta and Raditz, who are still children, are busy eating a meal, and Raditz points out that they have been ordered to go back to planet Vegeta, but Prince Vegeta refuses to go back, and instead simply says that he will stay where he is at. So Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz defy Frieza's orders, and they stay on their assignment, and thus they are spared of what comes with planet Vegeta. Regardless, back on planet Vegeta, Bardock goes to his house where he sees his wife Gine, and Gine mentions that Raditz, which was their first son, who is about, maybe about 6 or 7 years old, is on assignment with Prince Vegeta, the son of the king. And Bardock kind of just smurfs about it. Anyways, they go to the incubation chamber that contains the 3-year-old Kakkarot, who is basically a toddler in this instance, and they look and see about it, and they say that Kakkarot has been in the incubation chamber for 3 years. So for the first 3 years of Goku's life, he was in a Saiyan incubation chamber. They point out that because Kakkarot is a low-class warrior, that he will be sent off-world to another planet. But they also get word that all Saiyans have to stay on Vegeta. Bardock talks with Gine and talks about how Frieza is going to wipe out the entire planet and all of its inhabitants, the Saiyans. And so they decide that they will take a space pod, put Kakkarot in it, and send him to planet Earth. And so, about 1 month later, or sometime later, Bardock and Gine have Kakkarot in a space pod. They take him out into the desert. They talk about how they should also go to Earth with Kakkarot, but Bardock mentions that if they do that, they will be found out and hunted down and destroyed by the Frieza Force. Kakkarot, being a 3-year-old, is too weak to be noticed by the Frieza Empire. And so, Gine and Bardock say farewell to Kakkarot and tell him to survive and stay alive and to watch out for Frieza and the Galactic Patrol. And on that, Kakkarot is sent off into outer space, going to planet Earth. And the fated battle, or the fated event, is that in 30 years from that time, Kakkarot or Son Goku would grow up to be a fine man and would face off against the nemesis who killed his father Bardock, his mother Gine, King Vegeta, and genocided the Saiyans, Frieza. And that's Dragon Ball Minus. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't really like this version of Bardock. I'm going to give Dragon Ball Minus, The Departure of the Fated Child, a pretty much a 3. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. I give Dragon Ball Minus, The Departure of the Fated Child, a 2 out of 10. Not a great chapter. Not really that interesting. Now, very briefly, and I'm not going to go over all the details of this. There's another chapter in Jocko the Galactic Patrolman that has Goku in his Scion attack ball crashing on Earth. And we have a scene where Grandpa Gohan is feeding Goku. He names him Goku because Goku means coming from the sky in Chinese kanji. There's also a scene with Bulma, who helps Jocko and them out. Several years later, or many several years later, Bulma is a teenager. She graduated from university, and she's already invented the Dragon Radar, and she has discovered strange objects made from a material that is not from Earth. It's actually a lot like the spaceship that Kami, or the son of Katus, used to go from Namek to Earth, and she has used a radar, or created a radar, that can jam in or hone in on their signals. They're called Dragon Balls, and when all 7 are put together, they can grant any wish. So one day, Bulma comes to visit Dr. Omari's island, and they're there talking about various stuff and whatnot. The whole entire reason as to why Jocko even came to Earth in the first place, to stop the Scion child Kakkarot from wiping out the Earth's population. It goes back to like Star Trek with the non-interference protocol of the Federation of Planets in Star Trek. Akira Toriyama took his idea from that, of the Galactic Patrol. Regardless, Bulma has already found 2 Dragon Balls, and she's on her way to get the 3rd one. And so we have Bulma in the clothing that she's in at the start of Dragon Ball, in her vehicle, driving there. And we have Son Goku, who is carrying a fish to take it to eat. And so, this is the beginning of Dragon Ball. This is the setting into which Dragon Ball begins, and the legend of Shenlong, or the Emperor Pilaf arc. So anyways, how do I rate or really care about this? I give it about a 2. I give it a 1 out of 10. It's really not that relevant, but regardless, I think it was a shame that Akira Toriyama did not include the Bardock stuff into the Frieza arc. But regardless, while none of this is in the original manga, I did want to cover it. Now, in one Dragon Ball Z episode, there is a filler episode where Frieza has a flashback about King Vegeta. And in this flashback, Frieza is talking a bit about King Vegeta III, and he is in his courtroom, and Frieza goes in there, and they're talking about stuff, and finally, King Vegeta decides to hatch a rebellion against Frieza. So somehow, King Vegeta and his men invade Frieza's spaceship to try to free Prince Vegeta, who is being held as a hostage on Frieza's spaceship. King Vegeta gets into a fight with Frieza and is immediately killed, and him and his men are wiped out and killed. And then Frieza creates a death ball and kills Bardock, of course, and destroys planet Vegeta. And this is part of the flashback. In the episode that Vegeta dies, or the episode where Prince Vegeta dies, there are some other filler scenes of King Vegeta and stuff. I think it would have been awesome if King Vegeta had a cameo in the original mangaka, but sadly he wasn't. But the filler isn't really that important, but still, it really does serve as a plot build-up, or a plot device for the build-up. So, Another thing, on a final note, there is this dream sequence that Goku has where he's talking to a dead Vegeta, and he is seeing all of the dead Saiyans and all of the dead Scions and stuff that Frieza wiped out. And they're telling Kakarot that he has to avenge the Scions. He has to defeat their ultimate arch nemesis, Frieza. And it's an interesting scene. It's trippy. It's a trippy scene or whatnot. What else? That's pretty much it. So, yeah, that's kind of the Bardock lore, and I didn't really say too much about the King Vegeta lore. Oh yeah, one more thing before I end this. I never got to talk about this, so I'll talk about it now. Originally, Planet Vegeta was called Planet Plant. Planet Vegeta used to be called Planet Plant, and it was inhabited by the two Sephorians and the Scions, and the two Sephorians had advanced technology, including scouters, and they lived in cities while the Scions lived in the wasteland. And a war broke out called the Two Sephorian or Tuffle and Scion Wars. It lasted for 10 years, and the two Sephorians fought back as best as they could, but the Scions were vicious, and one night they turned into Great Ape Ozarus, and they pretty much wiped out and exterminated all of the two Sephorians. So the two Sephorians, whatever survivors there were, left Planet Plant, and the Scions conquered Planet Plant and renamed it Vegeta. And then they entered into an alliance with an alien species that gave them technology like scouters and battle armor and other hardware and space technology to travel to other planets. And I think that this deal ship, where the Scions would use technology from other species to go and conquer other planets, was the process that the Scions were absorbed into the King Cold Empire. And eventually, King Cold handed his empire down to Frieza, and that's how Frieza became the ruler of the Scions, or like the Emperor of the Scions. And the Scions were basically slaves to Frieza. They were basically used and abused at will by Frieza and Cold before him. The Scions would send their infants or babies to other planets to exterminate those populations, to then resell for a high price or bidder on the galactic market. For planets that had stronger inhabitants, stronger Scion warriors would be sent there to fight and to do the dirty job. Their particular ability to transform into Ozarus under a full moon or an artificial moon gave them a useful advantage. Now, King Kai, or Kaio, said that the god of Vegeta used his psychic abilities to attract a field of meteorites or an asteroid field to crash onto planet Vegeta, causing it to blow up and be destroyed, wiping out the Scions. Kaio doesn't mention about Frieza in this context. So, when it comes to the two Sephorian Tuffle Scion Wars, I rate it a 4 out of 10. Anyways, with the Bardock special overall, I give it a 6 out of 10. I give it a 6 out of 10. Not the best. Anyways, that is my review of a final and solitary battle, the father of Z Warrior Kakkarot Bardock, who challenged Frieza, and the departure of the fated child. So, Rick Perry says, woo. JC, how are you doing, Rick Perry? JC137 Craft a Planet says, hi, how are you doing, Craft a Planet? Hi, Craft a Planet. Hello, Rick Perry. Rick Perry said hi. Rick Perry said hello. Rick Perry says that my hair was very nice today. it's still very nice and silky. Ah, that's good to hear, Mr. Rick Perry. Third Four, how are you doing, buddy? Third Four says that Frieza is freaking woke. No, I disagree with you, Third Four. I think General Blue and the Red Ribbon Army are far more woke than the Frieza Force. Like, the Frieza Force were working Vegeta like a slave and wiping out populations of different planets. I disagree with you, Third Four. The Red Ribbon Army is more woke. Third Four says that Jackie Chun could beat Frieza and Boo. Okay. I mean, we're not talking about Majin Buu. That's going to be much, much later. I thought that the Tuffles were non-canon. Well, Akira Toriyama did some character sketches for the filler episode where Kaio talks about the two Sephorians and the Scions in the Scion arc. Anyways, I am your host, ImperatorOfForge, and this has been my review of the Bardock special. I'll go ahead and do my review of the Namek and Frieza arc later. I'll probably cover it when I do finish the Frieza arc. I know that Bardock, between Bardock and future Gohan, both of them are very tragic characters. Oh yeah, in the Dragon Ball manga, there is a scene where Frieza does talk about how Goku or Kakkarot looks a lot like the Scion who tried to rebel before he blew up planet Vegeta. And so Bardock, even though he was not created by Toriyama, does make an appearance in the Dragon Ball manga in 2 panels. Anyways, I rate that a 0 out of 10 because it doesn't mean nothing. Anyways, Bardock is an interesting character. I don't really think that that Bardock is as important when compared to a lot of other characters. The reason why he's even really noticed and popular is because of the video games and Dragon Ball Heroes and newer material that's kind of exposed him. Otherwise, like in old Dragon Ball, he wasn't really that well represented. But Bardock and future Gohan are both tragic characters, so I thought that, okay, Bardock is canon, though. Yes, he technically is. I've been your host, ImperatorOfForge. This has been my review of a final and solitary battle, the father of Z-Warrior Kakkarot Bardock, who challenged Frieza, and the departure of the fated child. I'm your host, ImperatorOfForge. Thank you for coming into this review. Have a good day.